Dogpatch, Colorado. In most towns across the country, communities which are considered on the other side of the railroad tracks are where poor people struggle to survive. These proud people are not much different from the wealthier people who live in their towns. They love their children, their community, and most of all, they love their country. They are represented in greater percentage in our military, and they have a history of giving their lives for their country in larger numbers as well. In Pueblo, the toughest barrio on the east side of town is derisively known as Dogpatch. The original Dogpatch was created by the cartoonist Al Cap and is the backwoods community where the cartoon hillbilly Little Abner lives. It is a primitive community that doesn't have electricity or indoor plumbing. Dogpatch, Pueblo, is similar to living in some poor communities in Mexico. Almost 100% Hispanic, Dogpatch is a neighborhood filled with the original tiny houses before tiny houses became hip. Most of the homes are no more than 500 square feet and were built by their owners years before zoning and building standards existed in Pueblo. Many of these homes are surrounded by chain-link fences with pit bulls protecting the yard. It is a tough neighborhood to be born in, and even a tougher neighborhood to leave. The residents have accepted their neighborhood label of Dogpatch and embrace it proudly as their heritage. The Barkman branch was in the Bonfort neighborhood, but also served the community of Dogpatch and most of the east side. We weren't actually in this east side neighborhood, but we were the closest branch library to Dogpatch. For years, there was always talk of building an east side library, but it was just a pipe dream. Eva R. Baca Elementary School sits in the middle of Dogpatch. Eva R. Baca, a former teacher and principal in School District 60, was a well-respected educator. I loved visiting the school and giving out our annual library reading awards to their students. I was always inspired by their enthusiasm and positive energy during these awards assemblies. Looking out at a sea of young, enthusiastic Hispanic faces, I always sensed that the future was in good hands. One of the East Side residents who wanted to improve his life was a young Army specialist named Patrick Lucero. Patrick joined the military at a time when most young men his age did everything they could to avoid serving their country. He was a proud 18-year-old soldier who was shipped to Vietnam. Pictures of Pat Lucero while in Vietnam capture who he was with his muscular physique and broad, happy smile. He loved the Vietnamese children and engaged them with open arms. On March 16, 1968, he had volunteered to walk point during a search and destroy mission when he was ambushed and killed in action along with 4 other soldiers in his platoon. Before he was killed, Pat pushed forward while facing superior firepower and called in an airstrike on the enemy's position to protect his fellow soldiers. Pat was posthumously awarded the Silver Star with a cluster for valor. In an instant, the promising life of this Pueblo East Sider ended. His older brother, Bill Lucero, was a good student who also exhibited great potential. Bill became a lawyer and is now the presiding disciplinary judge for the Colorado Supreme Court. Who knows what Pat Lucero would have achieved if he had survived the war? His brother Bill is a great example of the drive and the dedication of the Pueblo East Side Lucero family. Pat's boyhood friends, Jim Lewis and Bill Bailey, and his brother Bill wanted to dedicate a living memorial to Pat Lucero in Vietnam. Working with Peace Trees Vietnam in 2010, they built a library named after Pat Lucero in the province where he was killed. What better way to honor his life than to create a library in his name? The Patrick Lucero Library in Vietnam was created to heal the pain between the two countries that were once mortal enemies. Almost 60,000 Americans were killed in the Vietnam War, and the Vietnamese lost a total of 3 million soldiers and civilians on both sides. A few years after the construction of the Patrick Lucero Library in Vietnam, the Pueblo City County Library District decided to open a much-needed East Side library. It was only natural that the pride of the East Side, Pat Lucero, should have this new Pueblo library also carry his name. I always believed that the community we served at the Barkman branch really needed their own library. It wasn't a luxury, but a necessity for the kids and the families who lived in our community as a sanctuary and a place for lifelong learning. But even more than the Barkman branch, no other patrons in our city needed the Patrick A. Lucero Library than the east side of Pueblo. Abandoned by businesses that were afraid to exist in this community, the only supermarket shut down shortly after the Lucero Library was built. The east side of Pueblo embraced this new library with open arms. On December 13, 2014, the Patrick A. Lucero Library opened. The Patrick A. Lucero Library is the heart of this proud community. Located near the intersection of 7th Street and North Monument Avenue, it is part of a triad of facilities that serve the East Side community. Across the street is Risley's School of Innovation, a charter school, whose building also houses the Boys and Girls Club. On the other corner is the St. Leander Catholic Church, which has served the spiritual needs of the East Side residents since 1925. Every afternoon when the students leave their classes at Risley, they run across the street to the library. Just like in Pueblo West, the Patrick Lucero Library is overwhelmed by young people from 3 p.m. until dinner time. Since the library opened, Diane Logie, a Hispanic woman and Pueblo native, has served as manager. She has a personal connection to the patrons she serves. Like many poor communities, gangs have always been a problem on the East Side. The library and the Pueblo Police Department have been aggressive about giving young people other options. Every afternoon at the Patrick Lucero Library, former gang members counsel young people on how to avoid the influence of gangs and making poor decisions. Some of these dedicated counselors have bullet holes and scars on their bodies as a result of their past bad decisions. They are also East Siders who have credibility when it comes to sharing their anti-gang messages with these young people. The good that is done at the Patrick Lucero Library is equal to the goodness that was in the heart of Pat Lucero and his family and friends. In 2015, Diane Logie traveled halfway across the world to visit the Patrick Lucero Library in Vietnam. She wanted a personal connection with this sister library in Vietnam. Some people claim that libraries are no longer relevant, that the public can find almost anything they need on the internet. I tell them to visit the Patrick Lucero Library on the east side of Pueblo on a weekday afternoon. It is a sanctuary of goodness for the young people who visit this library. With the tremendous wealth in this United States, there should be a Patrick Lucero Library in every impoverished community in the country. Security and personal safety, as well as information and learning, should be free to those people who don't have the resources at home. The Patrick Lucero Library is a living monument to a 19-year-old soldier who was equally proud of his heritage, his East Side neighborhood, and his country. The Patrick Lucero Library is the finest notion the library-loving taxpayers of Pueblo have ever funded. In 2005, while working for the Pikes Peak Library District, I produced a project called ¿De dónde eres? We interviewed over 40 important Hispanic residents of southern Colorado. It was initiated by our library director at the time, Jose Aponte, and he wanted to explore the definition of Hispanic and the variety of people and places that represent the Hispanic culture. It was produced at a time when almost every leadership position in Colorado Springs was Hispanic, even though the Hispanic population was only 18%. Lionel Rivera, the Republican mayor of Colorado Springs, was of Mexican heritage. Library Director Jose Aponte and Police Chief Luis Velez were of Puerto Rican heritage. Fire Chief Manuel Navarro's family came from Spain and worked as indentured servants picking pineapples in Hawaii before they immigrated to California and became naturalized citizens. My mother's family, her maiden name was Soledad Calvo, made the same journey from Spain to Hawaii and then to California. United States Senator Ken Salazar and Pikes Peak Community College President Joe Garcia could both trace their heritage to the early 1600s and the original Spanish immigrants to southern Colorado and New Mexico. My friend and former ALA President Camila Alira, who was born in Monte Vista in the San Luis Valley, could trace her heritage to the original Spanish immigrants and the Native Americans who have lived in Colorado for thousands of years. That variety of heritage and culture was explored in the following programs that I produced and uploaded on YouTube called ¿De dónde eres? You can view the ¿De dónde eres project on YouTube.